Okay. I just got the all clear that you can hear me, so hi. Good afternoon. I come to you, as you know, today from the traditional lands of the Lenape people, also known as Brooklyn Heights. Welcome to the presentation of the National Theater Conference's Person of the Year Award for 2020. One of the perks of being president, it is they get to choose, in consultation with the Board of Trustees, the Person of the Year, given annually to an individual who has made an outstanding and noteworthy contribution to the theater. For me, this was an easy choice, Taylor Mack. I have known Taylor since our orbits intersected for a time a few decades ago, when I had the pleasure of directing Judy in a production of Blitzstein's The Cradle Will Rock and producing him acting in Stoppard's Night and Day. Back then, I knew Taylor was a highly talented young singer-actor who had great instincts, stage presence, and a wide range. Our paths diverged, but through the years, I've watched that amazing young person, through much hard work, blossom into the astounding Taylor Mack. Taylor Mack, who uses Judy lowercase as a gender pronoun, is a playwright, actor, singer-songwriter, performance artist, director, producer, and arts advocate. Mack's many works have garnered Judy a MacArthur Fellow, a Tony Award nomination, a Pulitzer Prize finalist citation, the Kennedy Prize, a New York Drama Critics Circle Award, a Doris Duke Performing Artist Award, a Guggenheim, the Herb Alpert in Theater Award, the Booth Award, the Peter Zeisler Memorial Award, the Helen Mirrell Playwriting Award, 2 Bessies, 2 Obies, 2 Helpmans, and an Ethel Eichelberger Award. An alumnus of New Dramatist, Judy is currently the resident playwright at the Here Arts Center, where this past spring, Mack co-originated the Trickle Up New York City, a subscription series created to give $10,000 commissions to artists affected by COVID-19 cancellations. Earlier this year, Taylor was honored with the International Ibsen Award, considered the Nobel Prize for Theater, and presented every 2 years to an individual or company that has brought new artistic dimensions to the world of drama or theater. Judy is the only American so far to have received this award. That award ceremony, a digital celebration, will kick off a special live-streamed event entitled Taylor Mack's Holiday Sauce Pandemic on December the 12th at 8 p.m. EST. This award ceremony continues now, as I am delighted and honored to present the National Theater Conference 2020 Person of the Year Award to Taylor Mack. There he is.
Hello. I'm phoning in from my phone, and you're seeing me on the video, so there may be a delay with my mouth, but we'll work it out. Thank you very much for this. When David contacted me about that I'd be receiving this, I was a little flabbergasted because, as dysfunctional as it might seem, part of me has always just wanted to be invited to the party, you know? And so the idea that I could be invited to a party that has Hallie Flanagan Davis and Joe Papp and Tennessee Williams, among more of my contemporaries like Sarah Ruhl and Robert O'Hara, is very humbling. I'm in it for the hang. That's what I'm in it for. I just want to hang out. George Wolf was working with me, and he asked me, why do you do this? We were having a hard time because people broke ribs and had to drop out, and the rehearsal process was awful. And he said, why do you do this? And I said, well, I'm in it for the hang. I like to hang out with people. I like to hang out with the crew and the artists and the ideas and the philosophy, the artists that came before me, the people that are just about to burst on the scene. And I want to hang out with the audience, and I just want to talk about how to live a virtuous life in an unvirtuous world. That's the whole goal. And for a really long time, it was hard to work in the American theater. I kind of turned my back on it because there was so much gatekeeping. So it was so hard to get even just a foot in the crack of the door of the party. You know, when you're a young actor, they say, oh, it's going to be very difficult for you to get hired, you know, because everyone's competing for roles, and you'll have to audition, and there'll be all these other choices. What they don't tell you is that you won't even be able to get in the room to audition. That's the hardest barrier. And so I spent many years trying to get into the room just to audition, and I was really unsuccessful. So eventually I gave up, and I went and I created my own little party off in my own little corner. I think it's very similar to what the National Theater Conference did in some way, where all the roadhouses closed down and cinemas were taking them all over, and all the theater went to New York City. And you say, well, wait a minute, we want to have a conversation. Well, what's going on in the rest of the world and the rest of America? And we want theater to matter in all these places. And so you created your own party. And so it's inspiring to be part of that. And it's nice also for such a traditional organization, a historical organization, to invite me in. It's quite sweet. So thank you very much. And I'll say more about someone else later.
Thanks, Taylor. What we'd like to do now is to present the Paul Green Award. And I'm going to say a little bit about Paul Green, and then I'm going to turn it over to Taylor to make the award presentation. For those of you who don't know, the Paul Green Award recognizes and encourages excellence in new professional theater talent. It is presented to a young theater artist selected by the National Theater Conference's Person of the Year and has been given since 1988. The Paul Green Award is made possible by a grant from the Paul Green Foundation, established in 1982 to perpetuate the vision of playwright and activist Paul Green. Green, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, served as a National Theater Conference president in 1941 and 42, and served on the executive committee in 44 and 45. Paul Green was on the drama faculty at the University of North Carolina, one of the 1925 original theater departments organizing to what was to become the National Theater Conference. More information about Paul Green and this award can be found on the NTC website, which I'm sure we'll post in the chat, but it's www.nationaltheaterconference.org/the Paul Green Award. Now, here's Taylor, who will present this year's Paul Green Award to Graham K.G. Garlington.
I'm back again. Hello. So this is the best part of this award, really, is that I get to give an award. That's how it works. Good on you for making that. So Graham, you know, I tour around the world, and everywhere we go, we invite local performers to perform with us. And I've gotten pretty practiced at discovering the people with the spark. I mean, they usually tell you who they are because they got the spark, but I've gotten pretty clear on being able to see, oh, that person is has got something going on. And so I went to a show in New York City. I wasn't even touring. I went to the Church of Stop Shopping's show, and I saw Graham performing in the choir. And he had a solo, and he whistles like you won't even believe. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with the energy, the spirit, the talent, and the vision, the personal. Here's something that not everybody knows about about queer artists, is that we have to spend a lot of time working on our personal craft. Meaning our life becomes an art project as opposed to necessarily the play or the dance move, we spend a lot of time crafting the art of who we are, and we have to do that in order to survive. And it's also, we have to do that in order to feel like we're the narrative of our own story. Right. So when I saw Graham, I said, that is a person who has spent their whole life crafting who they are. And that artistry is beautiful. And I'm really inspired by it. And so then I asked Graham to participate in a reading of a play of mine, the messiest thing I've ever written. It's just the first draft. But Graham changed the energy in the room. Everyone just lifted when Graham started speaking. And then recently I asked Graham to participate in the same thing. We've honed it a little bit more. It's a music theater piece we're working on. And Graham had a solo in it, and just again, everyone in the outdoor space with the wind blowing and the sheet music flying, and it's COVID time, we're all social distance. Everyone just went, and Graham started to sing and tell the story that we'd written, and so I just think this is somebody who's going to be very special in the American theater and the world theater. And I can't wait for you all to get to know him. And I can't wait to get to know him more. And please welcome Graham Garlington.
Hello. I don't know if anyone can see me, but I can't see myself. There I go. Okay, hi. So I'm Graham. My pronouns are they and he. And I'm just really, really thankful. It means so much, just first of all, just to hear the way like Taylor talks about me, and just how we've never really even had a conversation about how much like queer art is just the journey of your life, and now I'm just making it a little bit more performative than it would be for a stage. And that's exactly what it is. Like I remember, like every time I go on stage, I remember the first time I went on stage, and it contextualizes who I am every time after I go on, like the next time I go on stage. And wow, I especially this year in particular has been a lot of me finding that I have to qualify my art for myself so often in ways like external and have become internal. So it's like especially with the pandemic and everything, it's like it's so hard to be able to afford to do art in the first place. And then when I'm a barista, I'm a barista. I'm a musician, but I am a barista for capitalism's sake. And having to do all of that and that being taken away, it's like, can I even call myself an artist if I can't do it? And if I don't have the like emotional stability to do it, especially like being Black and trans in this like very, very tough year. And so it's very, very nice to hear somebody be like, that is just the energy you bring. And it's great. It's a great reminder for myself to be like, no, I don't have to. It's not because I went to college. It's not because I did this. It's like I showed up to that, voice lesson every time. Like I auditioned every time, even though for years they told me I was too masculine to play that part, but they wouldn't let me audition for the men. They told me my voice is too low, but they wouldn't let me audition for the lower parts. And so it took a lot of me just being like, oh, I'm going to have to just do this for myself. It took me writing 2.5, 3 musicals where I'm like, so the main character is like a plus size Black non-binary trans person. Oh, what? I guess I'm the only person that can play it. Oh, well. So it took a lot of me just like, I'm a Leo sun. Like it took a lot of me just like forcing myself into a confidence that like the world wasn't going to give me. And so for it to slowly but surely start coming back and like realizing it's less about like the quantity of people that hear my work and like the quality of people that hear my work. And I remember meeting Taylor and I remember being like, oh, wow, I think this person sees me. I think Judy like actually understands why I'm like whistling for my life in the back row of the choir. Like everyone knows, like they understand, like the people that I have found that are in my like soul tribe make it like I'm singing for 1,000 people. And so of course, yes, I would love to like my art to be like shown more, and I would love to be given like the space and the resources. And I'm so thankful for these like resources to help make rent, to like, get a new guitar string because I broke my last one that's just been sitting on the wall for a couple months. But all of that to say, I'm just like very, very thankful that it seems like I have been putting the right foot in front of the other. Like I have been doing the right thing, like what I want to do with my life, why I wake up in the morning singing and writing abstract musicals about dysphoria and gender and the Black trans experience. Like I am doing something right. And that is more of, it's more, I have more gratitude that I know how to express. And I just hope that like the art that I continue to create continues to make space for kids like me, so that when there's another kid in high school being like, Graham sang this song and they're AFAB, so I can do it. Like this, like I don't have to sing the alto parts because of the way my body looks. Like I want to be able to give that for the next generation and my current generation. I know so many people that are the same age and older than me that have been seen through my music in a way that I'm like, so many more people need that from you. And I'm like excited for the part of my life where I'm no longer seeing what I can get in like a validation way, because I am finding that validation for myself. And it's more of like, what can I give to my community through my art? And this is just another stepping stone towards that. And I'm just thank you so much. I think that's all I have to say.
That was great. We're going to have a long conversation and Q&A with Taylor. And I thought just before we did that, because we have a little extra time, if anybody has any questions for Graham, we could shoot those out now. And, you know, because you could hang with us for a little bit and maybe. And
I'll stay, you know, I'm unemployed. I got nothing going on.
Let me ask you one question then, right? How are you doing in the pandemic now? I mean, how is that for you and what you're doing?
Well, you know, 9 months in is so different than like a month in, because a month in it was like I shaved my eyebrows off and I was like, I'm committing to a life of Zoom drag. And then like 2 weeks after that, it was like, no, I'm not doing anything. So it definitely is a yo-yo, and I think I'm learning to accept that it's a yo-yo of like, there are going to be some weeks where I'm super productive and I'm like using my productivity to kind of get out of that fog, and there's other weeks where I'm just going to have to rest, and I can't beat myself up for needing to rest, especially as like I have a chronic illness, like I'm Black, I'm like I was a barista, so you know I wasn't like swimming in resources before the pandemic happened, and that, you know, $600 a week ended a while ago. So I really am like learning to take the time I actually need versus like the pace I was used to when I had to like hustle like 6-7 days a week. And it's just drastically different. So there was definitely like a dip of like productivity equals like moral, like lack of productivity equals moral shame. And it's like, that's not necessarily the truth as I'm finding.
It's a time, a space to kind of get inside yourself a little bit too, I think, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm looking to see, let's see. Congrats to both Taylor and Graham. Taylor, thanks for introducing us to Graham. Graham, are there any opportunities to read your work you could share with NTC?
That has been the struggle, is that like finding time to record and like having the money to record is like that's one of the biggest hurdles. So it's like I have 2.5 shows kind of ready to go, and the last time I was able to put them up was like when I was a senior, and the shows have changed. That was like almost 3 years ago now. And, you know, so there's like little cell phone videos and those kind of things, but that's the goal, is to be able to get something concrete so that I can actually share it outside of live performances.
Another question is, what would you want this group of artistic leaders around the country to know about supporting young artists like you?
I think that, like realizing the privilege of like resources to like time, because it's not just like, oh, I want a better guitar, or I want like a better recording. It's like I can't take off work for a month, and like my musician friends who are also going to help me record, we'd all have to take off work for like a while, and then all pay for a space in a time that we can all afford to get to, and then we maybe have 2 hours to record when I have like my average like song length is 7 minutes. So it's like, we're not gonna, like, it takes so much time. And so there's so much undue stress. So I think really just like spreading resources. So it's like, hey, like we're gonna cover, so like you can do whatever you want in an artistic space for like 2 weeks. Like you don't have to worry about like giving you that like college-esque, like you just have a black box you can go to and just kind of like try stuff in and just be able to actually workshop. Like the luxury of workshopping is something that I feel like you don't have when you have an apartment where you can touch both walls with your hands, that
Um, thanks. Anything else? Taylor, you want to ask him any question while we got him on the screen here? I can't hear you actually at this point.
I'm
There
pressing.
you go.
I'm
There you go.
unmuted.
There you go.
My question is, what are you working on now, Graham? What's the major theme or idea in the most recent song or piece that you've been writing?
So I've always had a difficult journey with lyrics and like time in music because I'm always like progressions and like music first. And so if lyrics don't feel right, then it's like I'm insulting the progression by putting it on there. It's like that's not what they wanted to say. So I have to do that. So I think so what I'm working on right now is revamping the first musical that I did, which was about space. And so it's like a piece about like anxiety, about feeling like you can't keep yourself in one spot. So it's about a person who every time that they like freak out, they jump to another planet, and then it's like so it goes from like a very real thing of like, oh god, I'm freaking out, and then it's like I am now on the 7th ring of Saturn, and you're watching like a supernova happen, but it's just like people's bodies. Like I want to kind of have like oh, this person's kind of like yo-yoing through space doing like I love the idea of like devised theater, but just the music of it. Like we know what we're gonna do, but we devise the music on the way. Where it's like I get people who are really comfortable in like creating harmonies together, and we literally like a soundscape of the universe to help this person cope with their anxiety. Like that's where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, gorgeous.
I have another question. Let's see. Graham, what do you all wish you had received when you were training to be an artist that would have affirmed you all? Please start a GoFundMe today so that we can send it around to NTC. Send it to us.
Actually, there's a GoFundMe that you can. My partner is raising funds so that they can leave their transphobic workspace, so I can send that GoFundMe.
Please, that'd be perfect.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're an artist too. They do a lot of amazing tarot work and stuff. So, and we both do tarot and astrology. So,
and is there some training that you wish you'd had that you?
Training, I think. I was lucky to have like I took some like film classes, and they were very much in like a DIY of like you're not gonna have an entire studio when you graduate, so what are you gonna do? I think having more classes that really or just some type of workshop that was like you have like 2 hours, maybe an hour a day, and you have a ukulele. Like what can you create with that? I had like one class in college that was like you have to make a 20-minute musical, and you have to you don't get like a rehearsal space. You just kind of have to make it work. And I think that putting that kind of restraint just as an exercise would be like, okay, do you see how important this is? So if you can decide whether you want that, because I think for me I had to be like, oh, I don't think I want to do like the audition. Like that was a lot of my like physical time, and it didn't feel beneficial versus like sitting in my room writing out a musical and then like finding like just going from like the traditional like Broadway like I'm like most of my day is me auditioning to like I'm writing a weird song and I hope that I can like convince this bar to make me turn it into a musical, like that kind of thing. I think more classes that encourage that like less war-esque but guerrilla like theater making. I think that would be, especially until capitalism falls, like that would be advantageous. Because after that, then artists will just be compensated for their work. God forbid.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Exactly.
I've been asked if can you put the GoFundMe in the chat, or someone actually I think has found it.
I have put the GoFundMe in the chat.
Perfect. So y'all can find the GoFundMe that
Yes.
they were talking about right there in the chat. Thank you.
That's fresh start.
Yay. Listen, Taylor, thank you for connecting us with Graham. Graham, thank you for your presence today. You are a delight, and we all hope that we see more of you. I'm sure that's the case.
Oh, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Taylor,
thank you as well. We will see you later. At this point, I'm going to I'm just going to start my conversation with Taylor. We'll chat. I've got a bunch of questions. We may not get to all of them. We may skip over some. Well, whatever. And then at some point, probably in about 15 minutes or so, we'll open it up to questions from the group. So first of all, can you talk a little bit about your early career and basically how you started on your theatrical path?
Well, okay. I started off as an actor. I always wanted to be an actor. It's what I am, as well as many other things. I came to New York City, studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. After getting my first professional job out in San Francisco, I had a show called Beast Plague of Babylon. I dressed up like a poodle 8 times a week for 8 months, and sang Runaround Sue. And then I came to New York. I went to acting school, learned some Meisner technique. I grew up in Stockton, where really if you grew up in Stockton, California, the only theater that you know about is the theater that was on Broadway, right? And usually not the plays, just the musicals. So the options weren't really, I wasn't aware of the options. Right? So I come to acting school, and the acting school is very much like, oh, well, yes, you do the theater, but these are the appropriate kinds of, these are the appropriate shows that you make. This is what you want to strive in order to be in. But what they did, which wasn't accidental, is they gave us free tickets to everything in town, everything from Mabou Mines to the Wooster Group to Broadway, off-Broadway, everything. I saw at least 4 shows a week for 3 years while I was in school. And that program doesn't exist anymore, so the kids don't get to see these shows for free anymore. But I saw everything. I was one of the only students at the school, actually, who would always grab the tickets, always go. I went and saw Full Moon. I think I saw it at least over 30 times, but probably more than that, with Bill Irwin and David Shiner. And, I would go, I just saw everything. Angels in America, just go again and again. It was sitting up in the nosebleed. So I learned quite a lot from that. And I learned I learned more options. But still not enough options, I still was like trying to do it the traditional way. And as I said, I spent 7 years trying to get auditions, and I couldn't get auditions. I just really, the only auditions I could get was at the Jean Cocteau at the Hero Art Center for this thing, a smaller production that was a resident artist there who was doing something that didn't really pay. And then at the Flea, so everyone's talking bad about the Flea right now, but really they were the only one who would let me even in the door at the time. And I hooked up with Liz Swados, and she got me my first grant. And, so I've always seen that world in some ways at least had the door open, a crack for young people in a way that other places, unless you go to the Ivy Leagues, they just don't have the door open for you. But I wasted a lot of time. I should have gone to Berlin and started working immediately, But then I gave up on the American theater. I went to the club scene, and they would take you. All you would have to do is dress up really fabulously, walk into a bar, and say, "I want to sing a song," and they would say, "Great, go for it." And then I would, and then they said, "Oh, come back next week. We'll give you $50." So then I would come back, and that's how I ended up making my living for quite some time. And then I started taking all the things that I learned in the club world, all that kind of spontaneous improv that I was terrified of, but that I learned, and incorporating it into the plays that I was writing, because I've been writing plays all this time and all that time. And then I started kind of blending the two worlds, the club world and the theater world, and making my own thing. And then pretty soon, well, I will say this: the American theater never really caught on until I went to Edinburgh. I had to go to Edinburgh, become a big hit in Edinburgh, and then have a touring European career. And then the American theater was like, oh, So then I came back to the U.S. and suddenly people were booking me here. And then it's been kind of like whoosh ever since, but slow, inching my way.
Well, then you basically answered my second question,
Sorry,
which
I
is
talked
great.
so long.
No, you just read my mind. I mean, my question was if there was a moment when a door opened to bring you from one direction to another, but it sounds like the doors were all in Europe and to bring you back to the United States.
Well, I mean, that's not entirely true. I mean, there were, the people that were brave enough to go down to the gay basement bar and see work, like the Morgan Janessas of the world and the Mark Russells of the world, they came and then they saw and they started to support me in real ways. Mark booked me at the Under the Radar Festival in his first season and at the TBA festival out in Portland. And so he was really the first person to start booking me with paid gigs. And Morgan was the first agent to say, yes, come on board. And she taught me everything in terms of dramaturgy. And so and Kristen Marding, who created the Hair Art Center and is the artistic director there, she also was another person who was brave enough to come to the gay basement bar at that time. There was very few kind of artistic directors that would do that and see work. And she immediately just embraced me and made me a resident artist at the Hair Art Center and supported everything. So by the time I did the Lily's Revenge there, I'd already had a European career, but the development process has been 4 years. So she'd been supporting me all that time. That's what I say.
Since you mentioned the Hair Center, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Trickle Up, its origins and how it's doing in terms of, it's a great idea. And you just want to explain what that is?
It was just right when the shutdown happened back in March. I overheard somebody say, a young person say she had 3 jobs and now she had no jobs. And I just know, I know what that felt like for a good percentage of my life, to not know how you're going to eat and pay bills. And I know that I could get through this pandemic because I'd been given some support from foundations. And I thought back in my time when I was at the Flea and Liz Swados put my name forward for a grant and I got $7,000 from the Peter Reed Foundation. And it changed my life because suddenly I was just a little bit ahead of my financial ruin, so suddenly I had some breathing room, and it made all the difference. I wasn't chasing survival anymore. It was kind of chasing me. so I thought I want to figure out how I can do that for other people during this time. And I called up everybody that I know that works in the theater, like Lynn Nottage and Dominique Morisseau and Sarah Rule and a lot of playwrights, and I asked them all to pitch in little short videos that they could easily make on a phone, and then we would sell subscriptions. We'd basically make a Netflix network. We'd sell subscriptions, and all the money would go to people. So we got about 1,000 people to subscribe, and they were all paying $10 a month each, and so that meant that we could give $10,000 a month away. $10,000 was enough, I think, for somebody to survive this pandemic, at least for, and poor people know how to make money stretch. So for you can probably use that money to help you survive for a year, on top of the unemployment and stuff that was coming in. So we managed to give away $80,000 so far, and about to give away our 9th one, and I've given it over to somebody else to manage, and so they're in the process of taking it over right now, and so more videos will be coming up onto the site, and it wasn't philanthropy; it was commissions. We would pay them a $10,000 commission to make 10 videos for the site, so it was that kind of exchange. I had the larger idea that if all of the American theater came on board and they all put their online content up, all the not-for-profits, then you could probably get 1 million subscribers, which would mean, you know, $10 million that you could give out every month.
Wow.
So it's a big vision, but it's something that somebody like Hallie Flanagan Davis would do, not me. You know, somebody else is going to have to take that vision and run with it. But it's a really good idea if you've got the support. And I know in terms of it's a beautiful documentation of this pandemic time. So there are universities listening, and you want to get involved in it. Reach out and I'll get you connected to the people that are running Trickle now. Beatrice Thomas, who's out in the Bay Area, she's the head of it now.
That's great. A wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm so glad that it's going on and you're actually able to give lots of money to people. I don't know, I don't have the web address at the tip of my tongue here, but I think that maybe Katie or somebody might find it and post it in the chat. But it's at the Here Arts Center here in New York City. So let me ask you a question. I got some time here still. A 24-decade history of popular music. I mean, I'm going to use the word seminal, okay? Because I think it was. What were its origins? And you can speak to that for a little bit, but I'm also interested to know if there are any special moments during performances that stand out, you know, because there may be something funny that happened, something poignant, something outrageous. I don't know, but we'd love to hear a little bit about that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, the origins of it was the AIDS epidemic. For me, I was a 14-year-old kid, and I'd never met an out homosexual before. And I went to San Francisco. I spent the night in my friend's car with her. We drove to San Francisco. I told my mom I was spending the night at her place. And we went to the very first AIDS walk. And the first time I ever saw a single out homosexual, it was thousands all at the same time. And the reason that they were all gathered together was because of the epidemic. So they were being torn apart, but at the same time, they were building bonds with each other. People were singing and pushing loved ones in wheelchairs and dying, but fiercely together. I'd never experienced queer agency or queer pride before. I didn't have any sense of queer history. There was no mention my entire childhood education of anything queer. So it was just, of course, I suspected it was there. I'd been kind of told it was there, whispered to me that it was there, but I just never experienced it. So it had a profound effect on me. And I think that most of my work is about that, that moment. So with 24 Decade, I wanted to figure out some way to do a metaphorical reenactment of that moment. And so I went through the history of the US and found different communities in every decade that were building themselves as a result of being torn apart. And then we focused on them in different ways for every decade, sometimes obviously and sometimes metaphorically. And then we squished it all together and we made a big 24-hour-long show, which the audience and all the I performed it for 24 hours, and you know, my body's falling apart. Their concentration and their ability to stay focused is falling apart. But as a result of all the things that I asked them to do and the onslaught of the history that's on our backs all together and how we're all trying to figure it out together, we end up building bonds. And it's been one of the great experiences of my life to do that show. We've been doing it for 10 years. And our process was different too, because we worked for 6 years and then we did it, and then we've been touring it for another 4 years. But the process of the first 6 years was touring. So we didn't ever rehearse really. For a 90-minute show, we would rehearse for just like long enough to make sure that the charts were in order. I would never do any of my dialogue in front of the band or anything. I never saw the costumes until the day that I wore them and walked out on the stage with them. The lighting I didn't see until it was in front of me. So we built it every time we would perform. But then afterwards, we would talk about what had happened, and then we would change things in our individual departments, and then show up the next day for the next performance and do it again. And so we grew it that way. So that's how I was able to memorize 246 songs, was just like by performing them.
Is there anything funny you can remember that happened, or some sort of moment with an audience interaction or anything like that you could that you remember?
Oh my God. My favorite story really is that Alan Pearson, he's a musician and conductor. Alarm Will Sound is his band, and he came to the 24-hour show, and he was fighting with his current boyfriend at that time, and the boyfriend didn't want to come, and so he said, "I'm going." So we went to the 24-hour show. We have a moment where we asked the audience to slow dance with somebody of their same gender. And so there was this guy that was across the aisle that he had slow dancing with, and they've been together for 3 years now. He ended up breaking up with his boyfriend, and then they moved in together. This new guy, they moved in. So it's been 4 years now that they've been together. So I like that story. I like it. I'm sad that I broke somebody up, but I like that I hooked somebody up too.
So matchmaker, right? I mean, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they're not the only story. There's been a few people that have met at the show, so it's quite sweet. Yeah.
I love that. Before I open it up for questions, I'd love to see if I can get you to talk a little bit about Gary, a sequel to Titus Andronicus.
Sure.
We know that it premiered at the Booth in 2019, and it got 7 Tony nominations, including one for Best Play. We know this. We know that NTC 1993 Person of the Year, George C. Wolfe, directed it. And we also know that Nathan Lane and Christy Nielsen and Julie White were in it. You want to talk about how it came about, how it was cast, anything else about the experience that you want to share with us?
Sure. I was originally writing it for the Hero Art Center as part of my resident, the resident playwright there. I felt like as I was writing it, I realized that maybe here had the low ceiling, and that it maybe wasn't the best space for the play. And so I thought, well, maybe we could do it at an off-Broadway venue that's slightly different, but then we would need more funding and blah, 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 blah. So Scott Rudin was meeting with me about something else, and I said, and I'd never met him before, but we kind of hit it off at the meeting, and I said, I mean, he's easy to hit it off with when you hang out with him. He's like really, he's very likable in person. In reputation, that's something else, but in person, he's really likable. So I was having a good time, and I just said, I got this other play, and I thought maybe he'd give us money, or because he had put Annie Baker's play off Broadway for a while, The Flick, and so I thought, well, maybe he's producing off Broadway as well now too. So I handed in the play, and he called me 2 days later and said, I want to do it on Broadway. So that's how it happened. It was so fast; it wasn't even finished being written. And then when George came on, which I wanted, because I was told it had to be somebody who had directed on Broadway before, because he was taking a chance on me, so he wasn't going to take a chance on anybody else. I was like, fair enough. So I said, well, of all the directors that I know that have worked on Broadway, Rachel Chapkin was certainly one of them, and she's a dear friend and a collaborator, but I knew she was busy with Hadestown. So I said, how about George Wolfe? And they'd worked together before. So he said, yeah, bring on George. It was fascinating working with George, really fascinating. And then Andrea Martin was cast, and she broke her ribs, and she had to drop out at the last minute, and it was like high drama. It was high drama. The entire thing was high drama. I've never had so much drama in any production of my life. It was like, oh my God, Queens. But thank God for Julie White and for Christine Nielsen, and I actually loved working with Nathan. He's tricky, but I loved working with him.
Wow. Let me ask you one more question, and then I'm going to tell you a couple of questions I got through email, and then we'll open it up to everybody else. So y'all get ready to type in the chat or use the whatever we got to use there to get the questions out there. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you so you can tell me. What is next? We know I think that it's Taylor Mack's holiday sauce pandemic. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Holiday sauce pandemic. I started this holiday show in 2017 at Town Hall. Basically, my drag mother, Mother Flawless Sabrina, would say to me, "You're the boss, applesauce." And what she meant by that is that I'm in charge of my own life, right? She said that to me at a time when I was cleaning toilets for a living at the Drama Bookshop. And she said, if you don't commit to yourself, the universe won't commit to you. So I said, okay, all right. I'd heard that before, but when she said it was the first time I went, right, okay, I got it. So I quit all my survival jobs and I just committed to nothing but making my art. And then it started to work out. Amazing. So I've always hated the holiday season. It's rough because of the guilt and the burden of dealing with family and their conservative politics and religion and all of that. I've never enjoyed it. But I said, I'm the boss, applesauce. So why don't I do something I enjoy in December? So I made this holiday show that's a celebration of Mother Flawless Sabrina because she passed away in 2017. Right before that, she had these drag pageants in the 1950s that she had all across the US. She had 100 full-time employees. And she made a documentary that was filmed at Town Hall called The Queen. And Andy Warhol, she got Andy Warhol to give her the money for it. So she made this film. She was incredible. And so she had passed away and we had this gig scheduled at Town Hall. And I thought, you know what, we're gonna change it. We're gonna make it a celebration of Mother Flawless Sabrina. We're gonna disguise it as a holiday show so people come. And we've been doing it every year ever since. And this year we just said, hey, why stop? We're gonna do it on the virtual, so that's what we're doing.
That's terrific. And it's, does it start on a certain date? December 12th, I think.
December 12th, yeah, it's December 12th. There's 3 time zones because what our Genius producers, Linda Brumbach and Elisa Regas from Pomegranate Arts have done is they've gathered everybody wherever we've toured. They've gathered them all together and they're all getting their audiences to watch it. And they've given us some money so we can make it, but that means different time zones. So I've got to perform for the West Coast, for the East Coast, and for Europe. And so we're doing that all on December 12th. It's going to be a combination of live and pre-recorded material. We do it 3 times that day, and then we're putting it up online until January 2nd for people to watch.
And do I understand that you're getting? And are you getting presented with the Ibsen Award in connection with that somehow? Is that happening?
Yeah, that's on December 12th. The time period that we're doing for the European audience for Norway and Spain and I think a few others is when we're going to have our little award ceremony for the Ibsen thing.
Wow, that's terrific.
I wish I was supposed to go there, and I wish I was there with you guys now because I never get to go to the Players Club, and I live a block away. So I wish I could hang out with you all and talk at the Players Club. Well,
we'll have you as a guest another year. That's my promise. Okay,
all right. Fair enough.
From the emails, one person said, and forgive me, but I didn't get the names of who y'all were, but I got one question that says, the 24-hour marathon was a triumph. For me, it was transformative. How did you train for it?
Well, I marathon trained, so we would someone who runs a marathon, they never run the entire marathon until the day of the marathon. They just run shorter sections repeatedly. And so that's what we did. It was a 24-hour show, so we did 90-minute performances at Joe's Pub to build it, and then we moved it to 2 hours, 3-hour performances, then 5 hours and 6-hour performances. Then we did one 12-hour performance in Philly, which almost killed me. And it wasn't the 12-hour performance was at where was it? It was I'm totally blanking now. It's so awful. It was at Vassar. At Vassar, we did a 12-hour performance, and that almost killed me. And it was bare bones. But I think because it was bare bones, it made it harder because we didn't have the whole orchestra and the band with me and stuff. So I was just giving too much energy for 12 hours. But I learned a lot. And then we did the 24-hour show. And then when touring it, we broke it down into 4 6-hour shows that we would do in the course of 2 weeks. And that seems like the sweet spot. We did go to Philly and do 2 12-hour shows in the course of 2 weeks. And that nearly killed me as well. The 12 hours are much harder than the 24 was, strangely enough.
Wow.
But that's how we did it. Just performing a lot. We must have performed it 200 times before we actually did the whole show.
Wow. Wow.
Get that muscle memory. Yeah. And also I trained with Barbara May Augustern on my voice on how to ease up on certain things. So how to lift my palate more, make those different choices, and how to eliminate the kind of, glottal starts to things and stops to things, so that it just eases up on the tension in your vocal cords.
I also have another question that just popped in. Says, James still says, I loved your Lily 5-act theatrical event at Here. Did you always imagine that piece as a piece where each act would happen in a completely different space, or did that come out of your collaboration with directors and designers?
It was part of the piece to begin with. It was that it actually was all done in the same space, except for what we called the Kyogans, which were throughout the whole building. So those were the intermissions. We had Kyogan performances. I wanted to structure it like the No plays. So they tend to do 5 plays at about an hour in length, all in one day. And they have a certain kind of form and structure to those plays. Mm-hmm. So I took that and I used it as the form for the Lily's Revenge. And the idea was, it's all about myths and storytelling and the stories that we tell each other, and how to invent your own stories within the social structures. And so I wanted it to be cram-packed with every different style and form and genre. So every act is a different genre. And that meant that also that I wanted it to be proscenium and in the round and immersive and at one point we have a film that surrounds the audience, but the audience sits in the center, and then the final act is everything's flipped, where the audience was in the beginning, they are now on the stage, and the actors perform in the audience. So it was always, we was changing, but and we brought people in from different entrances for each act. So they really thought we had moved them to different theaters. They were like, how many theaters are in this at the Here Arts Center? But it was really just the same theater. Yeah. I was really, really proud of it. And Nick Vaughn was the scenic designer. He did a great job.
The follow was from James, says, Lily was one of my favorite nights in the theater. Thank you. I have another question from another email. Given the opportunity to build theater back better, what's the first thing you'd do? What would a new American theater look like, sound like, or feel like?
Well,
in 24 words or less,
Yeah, 24 words or less. My feeling is that we have given up on the government. And so you said, bring it back better. It reminds me of Biden. And I think we've given up on the government. We put the responsibility on foundations and on institutions. And it's time that as a collective audience and as collective artists, we need to demand that our government support the performing arts. It's just like that is the way that we're going to solve all of our problems. Because I always think about this as like, I know that for the equity that people of color want to work at Lincoln Center, I know that's true for the equity and for the opportunity, but do they really want to perform for that audience? I don't think so. Right? So, I mean, I'm not going to put words in my mouth, but I know that I've had to kind of grapple with that. I've gone, is that really the path that I want to take? Am I interested in performing for that audience as a block? I'm interested in them individually, but as a homogenous block, I'm not so sure. So what I want is for the government to pay me so that I can make my own institution, and I want the government to pay people of color so that they can make their own theater. They don't have to fit inside the boxes of these white supremacist institutions. So that's the solution to so many of our problems is get the government to pay us. It's our tax money. We are essential workers. And until we get them to figure that out, until we rally all together and make this the central focus of all of our conversations, it's not going to happen. We have given up on that path. And that means the GOP has won. So that bums me out. And I wish that we would demand more. Because I tour all through Europe. I'm like, geez, it's so easy here.
Yeah.
Only in America isn't hard.
Listen, if you were in a room with all of us, you'd be hearing a resounding amen from all of us in the room. Let me tell you that right now. I got a message that Lori has her hand raised. So I think she will come to us via audio in a second. Oh, there she is.
Hello, Taylor. I am
Hi.
a great 24-hour marathonee. Thank you. Thank you. I think
Thank you, your family.
Oh, yeah. I think I drifted off for about 10 minutes during the 1950s. What'd I miss? No.
I don't know.
I want to reflect back to you. There are so many moments, and I spend hours talking to people about this because I remember it all so vividly, and it was so profoundly moving. The one moment that I want to reflect back to you and ask you a question about was when you sang the song Katie. Beautiful. Gorgeous. You took that upbeat, shy little soldier boy song to his sweetheart back home, and you turned it into pure terror as you crawled toward that balloon animal trench. And it hit me so hard. How did you know to do that?
Well, it's I had an acting teacher who said Sherlock Holmes the text. So I didn't look for the clues in the text for the character, the clues of the character in the text. So it's the lyric is the person has a stutter. Well, why do they have a stutter? Well, they're in World War I. Well, 16.5 million people are being killed around them. Is this jolly Katie? Is that actually the end of the story? Is there more to the story than that? So I guess that's how I did it.
Wow. Well, you did it, and it will remain.
Thank you.
It spoke to me about the horror of war in ways that are so profound that you can tell.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Lori. Let's see. I want to just check the chat here. Paul Singer says, thanks for crediting the designers. And then Lorca Perez says, can Taylor discuss designers and concepts? Does Taylor design most or all of the, or is the work full collaboration?
No, I don't design anything anymore. I used to design all my shows that I did solo because, when you're first starting out, you don't know who your collaborators are. You just got to do everything. But then around 2003, I met Machine, and then we started to work together in 2004, and then we really started to work together. He wasn't designing for me in 2004, but I would book him in variety shows to do things in the shows. Mm-hmm. And then in 2007, I asked him to join me on The Village Avenge, and then we really dug in together. And he's one of my great collaborators. I love that man so much. He's the most inventive costume designer you'll ever encounter. And he's a true artist. The costumes are metaphors. They're not utility pieces, So it's just right up my alley for what I particularly want the theater to be. And sometimes he's not right for certain plays. He could do here, but I would never ask him to do my play here because he couldn't he couldn't do what he does, but with Lily and with 20 for a Decade and the Walk Across America, he could, and he can do anything. I just don't want to squash his artistic vision. And this is how we work. It's very different from other people. I never tell him what to do, and he never tells me what to do. So I say, this is what the Decade and 20 for a Decade is about. I'm hoping that there'll be some kind of transformation, because this is what I want to do in the Decade. That's all I'll say. He shows up with the outfit that he has made. I wear it. The most I will ever give him a note on is, hey, could you cut that hem because I don't want to trip on it, right? That's the only thing I will say. And then I go out on the stage and I wear the outfit, or the other actors in the play, they wear the outfit, and then he looks at it and says, I should adjust this. I trust him to do his job. And meanwhile, I say, Machine has made me this incredible art piece. How can I adjust what I'm doing so that I can work with it? So I adjust, then he adjusts, then I adjust, then he adjusts. But we never tell each other how to adjust. And we just work that way. It takes a little bit longer to work that way, but the result is, what you guys have seen, which is, it's remarkable, I think. You don't get that kind of collaboration anywhere else in the American theater. Everyone knows it's very hierarchical, and unless it's device piece, and everyone's always telling people what to do. But I think it's better to trust artists to do their thing.
Well, it's like being in the room with somebody, like you say, and collaborating with folks and being together, and that's really what it's all about,
Yeah. Who's the playwright that does the Apple Family? What's his name? I forget. Richard.
I know who you're talking about, but I'm so bad with names.
He said he never tells the actors.
Richard Nelson.
Richard Nelson. Yeah.
Nelson.
Okay. Wonderful man. So he says he never tells the actors. He never gives them notes. He just says, okay, let's do it again. That's how he directs his plays. Let's do it again. He lets them find it. That's why they love him. That's why he works with such great actors.
Yeah. I'm waiting to see if I get some more questions from our audience, but I'll just ask you one. I think I already know the answer to it, and you might have already said it. But in terms of getting the MacArthur, I have a feeling that impacted you, and maybe stating the obvious. But how did the getting the MacArthur would impact your life?
Well, I mean, more positive ways than negative. I'll say that.
Good.
Briefly, the negative are that you become a bit of a target in a way that you weren't before.
Yeah, sure.
Before everyone is like, prove it, drag queen, what can you do? And then you win the MacArthur and everyone's like, prove it. Do you deserve that MacArthur? I mean, it's still like, prove it, but it's a little bit of that. But the positives are that, I never would have been on Broadway if it weren't for the MacArthur. Scott Rudin wouldn't have sat down and met with me. I know that for sure. So, when you're a drag queen in the culture, or you've done drag, you get a couple, people don't take you so seriously. It's really hard to get people to take you seriously. So I have this kind of stamp of approval from the MacArthur Foundation. And so everyone's like, oh, it must be serious. So like, I've seen people that wouldn't book me in a million years before, and we're always like, why would that drag queen? No. Suddenly they're like, oh, we'll book him. Yeah. So it's, that's been interesting to watch. And then the money's been great. I bought a house,
Yay.
Hey, not too shabby.
No, that's amazing. Let's see, we've got some time left. I'm actually kind of out of questions. You could talk about the Ibsen Award if you wanted to. The Nobel Prize for Theater seems fairly highfalutin to me.
The Nobel Prize is the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, it's probably the Nobel Prize is the Nobel Prize. But still, it's amazing.
I don't know whose marketing is. It's amazing. It's like Peter Brook and Manushka. Come on, I don't know. I'll take it. Hey,
absolutely.
Why not? I'll take anything that helps me keep, keep engaging in the art and making the art and bringing my family together and to make the art. You know, I'll anything I can do to bring the people together. It's hard in America, you know. You guys know it's hard. It's just like not the financial support that we need. I mean, the reason I bought a house is because I could not afford a space in New York City to rehearse. So I said, well, I think I could afford a house in the country, and then everyone in New York could just come up and live at the house, and we could make the shows there. So that's what I'm in the process of trying to create, because this kind of space I would need in New York to just be able to rehearse on a regular basis is just, it'll never happen, even in pandemic time with that thing.
Sure.
It's just never going to be affordable. So I don't want to chase money the rest of my life, and so I decided to shift things to the country a bit.
That sounds great to me. I will say that someone says that you're the new Hallie Flanagan, so you'll have to embrace that, I guess.
I don't know. I'll try. I mean, you know, that big vision idea that I have is, for Trickle is, that's something that, you know, you want somebody like the head of TCG to take on, or you want somebody like Lear DeBassinet, you know, needs to take that on. Somebody who kind of knows how to make that stuff happen.
Some of the people in this room, actually, so maybe this can move forward. You never know. Maybe. You never know.
Yeah.
I'm going to pause now just for a bit and see if there are any more questions, because we've had some lovely time with Taylor, and I have a raised hand. Yeah, from Lori, I think. Yes.
Yes, it's me again. I've seen you do Brecht, which was great. Are there any roles in classical or contemporary theater by playwrights that you would like to play?
Yeah. All of them. I mean, you know, I want to do them all. The problem is that, you know, the timing and the circumstance, and I mean, I kind of had a fantasy of just taking a year off and making my own work, just to do rep again, and to do a season like Mark Rylance gets to do, you know, where he gets to play like all different kinds of roles in one season. So that's definitely something that is in the back of my brain, just to give myself. I like to mix it up, you know. Not. I learned so much when I act in other people's plays. I learned a lot when I did that Good Person. So I wouldn't mind doing that. Do a musical and do a Shakespeare play. You know.
Didn't I see you do?
I don't know. What?
Didn't I see you do a clown in a Shakespeare down in the Village?
Classic Stage Company. Classic Stage Company. I did Puck with Tony Heald as opposite Tony Heald, and Bebe Neuwirth and Christina Ricci. And Stephen Skybell. Wow. Stephen Skybell was Bob. I mean, he's like, that's one of the great actors in New York, right there. Yeah.
Well, listen. Let me see if we have anything else for questions for you. I think that our audience has just really enjoyed. I'm going to speak for them because I can't hear them. So I'm going to imagine that I hear them. And I'm going to imagine that I hear them applauding you, because you deserve it, man. You deserve it. And thank you so much for spending the time that you spent with us, and taking the time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. And I'm going to say that there's a lot of love coming through the chat for you right now. There's love coming from me through the screen to you. There's love everywhere. When we need more love in the theater, for sure, and certainly we need more love in America and in the world as well. So you bring some, man. Every time you do something, you bring the love, and it is so much appreciated. They're all clapping for you now. I want to thank you so much on behalf of NTC for joining us, being our Outstanding Person of the Year. And I'm just going to end by saying, Taylor Mac, thank you. And I'm going to applaud.
Thank you for this, and thank you for supporting Graham, that wonderful human. Oh.
Absolutely.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. I'm going to, so folks, we now have some time. We have a break, and we're just a little bit early. We're going to start our next session at, I'm going to find my piece of paper that tells me, but I believe it's at 4:30 with our space to talk. So guess what? You have time to get up and stretch your legs and do what you got to do, and then join us back. Those of you who are joining us for our next session at 4:30. It's been a great day so far. I bet you all agree about that. And so thanks to Graham, and thanks to Taylor, and thanks to everybody who's put the afternoon together so far. And we'll get back to you soon. I'm not sure where the link for the next thing is. I'm looking to see if it's going to be in the chat or if we're going to send an email. Maybe someone could just come on and tell me what's going to happen.
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat. All right, so let's leave this up in time for people to be able to take that that link, because it scrolls by pretty quickly. So let's make sure that they can copy that as it is. See, it's already scrolling past for people.
It's also in the email.
Okay, perfect. Well, folks, thank you so much. We will see you all very soon, and have a great break. Bye.